it was an observation that I'm going to make watching Tom, you in particular, the past number of years. You've had players that surprised you. They were middle of the pack, but then they ended up the season being your most productive players in the playoffs. What would you attribute that to? Because I know so many people have picked players, they label them and they sort of limit them by how they utilize them. But when you have the developmental philosophy, they play all situations and they grow. And I know you had a couple of players that outplayed, outperformed the more talented players on your team. Can you talk about that?
Well, I think it's got a lot to do with growth and development because when you have that 2 years, so especially with this Bantam girls, U15 girls, a second year, a grade nine girl, a 14-year-old girl is basically a young woman. All the body change, like grade eight, all those changes happen, right? By the time they get to ninth grade, they're young women, and most places they're in high school. Then you got the girls that are just going into grade eight, they're still girls. And it's a huge growth development year. I know one girl grew 4 inches this year, and she was our best player in the provincials. And like that game we had in our hockey camp, she got 7 goals. And so I think that just the 2 year thing, and I remember playing in bantam and midget. My first year, I'd be, fourth, fifth in the team scoring, and the second year, I was leading the league in scoring. It's just a huge difference growing that 1 year of growth. So I think that's a thing. So they've been with you about 7 months now, and they've grown, and you know, and I think some of them just pass other ones just because they probably were better in the first place, as far as just not big enough and strong enough.
Jordan, what about U18? Because their growth spurt is basically done. But in terms of development, is there, uh, have you observed different degrees of development where those people that were in the bottom third might have risen to the top third? Does that happen or not? That
Oh
you're
yeah. Well, it's the tricky piece to me is that I believe players and all people need to develop in a place where it fits them and allows them to have their success. And so everybody's path is different. And so you look at it, and every player and every parent believes that their path is immediately from U15 AA to U18 AAA. And some even think that they should be accelerated and not play the second year of U15 AA as Tom's got one or two that I'm sure that parents that figure that piece or think that. But there's a lot of growth that can occur as long as they're growing in the right place. And it's kind of, if you look at it uh, with the plant behind you, Wally, it probably grows better in one area of your home than another area. But you wouldn't put it in the wrong place and expect it to grow the same in another place. So my long story longer on this is that I've had players that one player this past season that her first year of U18, she played at the community level or single A. In her second year, she played at the double A level. And then last year, she played at triple A. And this next year, she's going to be playing goal at Niagara University. And her path was different. We had another player this season that she did accelerate, that she played her second year of eligibility of U15 at the U18 AAA level and led the league in rookie goal scoring. but that's a different athlete. And so the growth that we see depends on the individual. And it's up to us to make sure that we're providing them the opportunities to grow in the right ways. The physical side of things that you see at the U18 level is that this is where they need to focus in on more of the weight training and those sorts of things and things that can make their body bigger and stronger. That's to get them ready for the next level. They have to be bigger and stronger physically. So that's where a lot of development has to occur. But yeah, the pathways of development are different for each individual, and we have to be aware of that. And so it's wanting to make sure that we again uh, don't have stealth expectations, and make sure we communicate with parents and hopefully they communicate back. I know that they all want their kid to have a Div 1 full ride scholarship, but that's not necessarily going to be the road for every single one of them.
One of the biggest, Wally and I, 10 years ago, we did this Bantam boys team. And this really little guy, he was like 5 feet, 90 pounds or something. A terrific skater. He made the team. I was in Stockholm at the World Championships mid-May. He was playing for Team Canada. And he didn't get drafted to the second year eligibility because he was still growing. He was playing in Regina. And then Seattle drafted him, started the second round. And so I guess he's 23 now, and he's 6 feet, 195 pounds. I looked him up in Hockey DB. So you never know at the start. And then my first year coaching AAA girls, long time ago, they let a girl playing grade 9. I think it was Shay Labby. She scored 32 goals as a grade 9. And also this goalie, Alicia Anderson, they let her play as well. She ended up playing for Lethbridge. She was the best goalie in the Western Division there, university. So sometimes players are ready when they're in grade 9. Like that one girl you talked about. I haven't seen her play, but I heard she's really something. But,
Jordan, your first year of coaching AAA GHC recently, there was one player I remember you telling me um, how important it was that they train in the off season. And I remember you telling me this girl did train, and it affected her making the team and contributing to the team. So I'd just like to put a plug in for, when I don't care if you're the best player right now or the middle of the road player, not many of them train properly. They play a lot, but they don't understand the physiology of uh, all the aspects that go into fitness, aerobic, anaerobic, strength, flexibility, and actual mundane training, progressive training. Uh, they're not athletes, they're hockey players. So the training element, I know at the national level, if you didn't improve in your fitness testing scores, you likely did not get invited back to camps that you may have participated in a previous year. So really at the elite, and maybe it's the elite of elite, training is really critical. And I know more CIS teams are training in the off season than ever before. And more kids are beginning to catch on to that, doing the right things younger. So I wonder if you could speak to how important that is, Jordan, in your coaching, and as you move into this season, how it might affect their growth and development and how you're going to coach them.
Yeah, no, well, The person you were talking about, Wally, is that obviously in our league, it's changed that we can have early commitments, basically commit our entire roster in the spring prior to the fall. And this one player, she was coming off an injury, and I didn't early commit her, but I shared with her if she put the work in over the summer that I could see her on the team. Well, she put the work in and more. That she came to camp and she was the player that was when we fitness tested was the strongest and had really good cardiovascular shape. Uh, and she just showed it on the ice as well and became a kid that was an automatic the first even after the first skate that we knew that we were going to be keeping her and she just led through the entire season as well that way and was absolutely terrific and we're I know that I can count on her doing that this summer as well. And again, back to the every player has a different path. Well, we have one player that we did commit this spring that she played 2 years of U18 AA before finally getting a year at U18 AAA this final season. And but she has just worked so hard on her game and seeing her this spring at different showcases that she looks like she um, has picked up her speed and is stronger, and she's actually been a fairly dominant player even amongst other kids that have played in our league the year previous. So I'm looking forward to seeing what she can do the year coming up. But this also goes back to you talked about university teams doing different things in training, and there was a speaker at the conference, Joel Becker, that was doing his master's in coaching at the University of Alberta, and he was a former hockey player, but then also a former national Canadian national long track speed skater, and he was talking about having a strong stride, strong hips, and biometrics. And he did some speed training was part of everything that he was doing, and it was basically putting the University of Alberta men's team hockey team through speed training every second week, and that it was similar stuff he'd said to what they would have done as long track speed skaters and he crunched the data and if the 10 weeks where they had done the speed training the team was a perfect 10 and 0 record or sorry 5 weeks that they'd done it they were 10 and 0 record or something that they didn't lose a game any week that they did that and the other weeks where they didn't do it they were 500 so it was really interesting talking about how off-ice training was translating to what was happening on the ice. And so he's another person that I need to get more information from to see what what we can do to make it work for our kids.
That sounds like a magic bullet. Um, because in-season training is sort of like, oh, you're a little worried you're gonna be fatigued, and it's not going to have a payoff. Uh, but it's interestingly enough, in training, the the threshold of 5 to 10 seconds is can be done in season. And the idea of overspeed and maximizing the muscle twitch and uh, pushing yourself to a faster pace than you've ever played in that short time period, uh, it's something I think that we could do more of. Um, I know one thing, and this is a long time ago. Dave King, he used to do 2-on-2 small area games, and they had to be overspeed. And it was 15 seconds was the max. If your feet weren't moving, uh, it was going to be push-up time. And that was the only thing he did. He just did this bizarre high tempo keep away game where they had to keep their feet moving much quicker than they are accustomed to. So it sounds, I'm glad you got to hear somebody speak to that and promote it by way of a 10-0 record from that in season, because uh, something we can all consider in terms of fitting it in. Now, in year three, practice as a week, George, schedule, Jordan? That's,
Yeah, we're 3 days a week for practice and 2 days a week for off ice training.
yeah. So in Tom's 2 days of on ice, um, I think they're, adding a tempo factor, bit more of a deliberate uh, pace and setting a tempo at a higher pace is it's something worth experimenting with.
Yeah.
One thing I would like to bring up, and I've found it really almost uncanny. Uh, when I coached and stayed with the player after practice and worked on a specific skill, I can remember Jen Botterill, and I just fed her pucks on the flank for one-timers. Didn't do any teaching, we just did it. And in the next game, she did it and she scored. And then recently, I'm looking at some video of a coach doing a similar thing with, I think it's one of the Hughes boys, where they deliberately practiced a flank pass, a fake shot, changing the shooting angle. And it showed video of him doing this isolated with the coach at practice. And then it showed video of the game the next day where he did it in a game. And that's one of the things that I think you can just sort of put in the back burner is if you got some free time and just work with the player on that. And I'm curious from an experimental point of view of people trying it. Now, I wonder if any of you have ever done that and seen a payoff. Peter, any ideas on that?
Yeah, I mean, I have, and really for me, really the only times that we really had much of an opportunity to do that were either at the prep school level, where we could get out onto the ice early, or in college. In youth hockey, it's impossible to do that because everything is so regimented and ice time is so uh, portioned out where your 50 minutes or your hour is over and then you're off immediately with your teams because you're splitting ice too in youth hockey here. For the most part, you've got half ice practices. So there's really not time to do much of that at the youth level, but at the college and prep school level, certainly. And yes, seeing benefits from that for sure.
Hal, what about you? Turn your speaker on, Hal. Hal, we need your speaker. Hal, have you got your speaker going or not? Nope. Well, guys,
Yeah, there we go.
mention that uh, when I attended practices uh, at starting at 4:15 at this one arena in Calgary, and the players were there like at 3:30, dressed, and they could go on the ice. And some uh, some rink caretakers let them do that. Some don't. You don't go on until you're supposed to. But for whatever reason, this particular Zamboni driver they just went on the ice. They got out of school early, and that time that they spent having fun, loosey goosey was good, but that's probably one of the only times you can ever get out early to hone in on something like that with a few players. I know as a mentor, when I'm at the sidelines and kids are just stepping on the ice, boy, I'd love to just work with one or two of them about specific fundamental things because they get a chance to practice the details of that. And I think we've just got to find ways to capitalize on that, whether you create that time by just cutting practice short, keeping people out that want to stay out, or keeping some positional people at one end to work on those things. I don't know, but I've just seen too many payoffs with specific tactical skill repetition. And it usually was at the end of a practice for players that could stay out at a high level, that I saw it happen in games. So
If you go to pro practices or whatever, the players, they work on one-timers before or after practice when there's no structure to the practice.
yeah,
They're working on them all the time. And so if you've got a lot of ice time, you got time. We have a drill that we do, a partner drill I picked up from Sweden, where they take 4 shots. So you have the puck, I skate towards you, you pass to me, I touch it back, you pass, I one time it. Do that 4 times, and you take turns doing that just to, you know, learn how to do it. But it's absolutely critical to be able to one time the puck, and that's, you beat the goalie before they're ready.
and one-time shooting's happening much sooner when they're much younger than now than ever before. I'm not sure how you would rate it at your level, Jordan, in terms of their ability to one-time shoot, but there's very
Catch and
little.
release too on
Yeah.
the forehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a high level skill that they need to work on and that they do work on. Wally, that rink that you talk about, we used that for 2 years. And the players that would show up early and hop on the ice. And how we got on the ice early was a 40 pack of Timbits every so often to the rink workers was a good bribe. And because there was one guy that would leave the door up at the Zamboni entrance so that you couldn't go out there, or would leave the lights off. And it's like nobody's using the ice, and it's going to be flooded once after anyway, so it didn't matter. So smoothed it over with a 40 pack of Timbits the first time, and yeah, it was good. There were kids that used that ice quite a bit and would come and jump on. Often. And then you'd have the odd kid that they would arrive at the rink at the same time as the others, and they stepped on right when the practice was going to start. And
Yeah.
you knew which one was going to develop more than the others.
Yeah. But, it's interesting. The idea of having a good relationship with the caretaker. My brother, when he taught junior high school, he was really good at buying a bottle of whiskey at Christmas for the caretaker. And he spent a lot of time there. He'd bring him lunch sometimes. But the payoff of doing that act, and it wasn't because he was trying to get more out of it, it was just the way he treated somebody who you need to respect. It gets back to that culture piece. You treat the caretaker as well as you treat the principal. There's no difference. And I know that they just had a ceremony and a dedication ceremony as junior high school they didn't name the gym after him, but they put a plaque up on the gym wall, which he had a small sign in his office about how great the kids were at that school. So just junior high phys ed teacher who did it all coaching, coach his sons playing hockey growing up and ball and whatnot. But it's sort of like the authenticity of what you do and why you do it. That sort of goes into the culture.